Well, I guess I'm rerunning, and what I can say is we did what we said we would do. We promised to fight abortion. We introduced and got passed some of the strongest anti-abortion bills in America. That would be the fetal heartbeat bill. In 2019, 2018, it was a ban on abortions post 15 weeks gestation. Also a bill that made it illegal, made it a crime to coerce abortion, we've made it grounds to shut down abortion clinics. Abortion clinics in Louisiana were basically shredding their records so they could cover up abortions performed on minors, abortions performed on underage, abortions performed to protect and camouflage the sex trafficking industry. And also we've done what we said we would do. We fought abortion. We said we were going to fight taxes. We introduced $320 million worth of budget cuts on the floor of the Senate in 2018. I'm one of a handful of senators that voted against every sales tax in 2018. In addition, I may have voted against the Louisiana budget more than any other senator the last 4 years. I voted against the budget in 2017, 2018, and 2019. That was not intended as a criticism of any other elected official, but it was just my belief, based upon a review of the budget, that there were millions of dollars that we were spending, actually scores of millions of dollars, some of it wasteful, some of it simply unnecessary. But in Louisiana, in order to, we have a balanced budget amendment. We cannot spend money that we don't have. So in order to cut taxes, we have to cut spending. So I took it upon myself. I think it's my civic, constitutional, and legislative responsibility to identify unnecessary government spending. We did that and introduced, I may have a moment or two later on to talk about it, but we introduced $320 million of targeted specific budget cuts, and that included, I don't know where we are on the time, but that included, for example, a hiring freeze on the executive branch for 1 year, a 1-year freeze on salary hikes for individuals making over $75,000 per year. That was a cut to the Department of Education. That's a bureaucracy in Baton Rouge. That's not teachers. That's not buildings. That's not books. That is a bureaucracy, which this year in 2019 is receiving over $400 million of state money. Well, a lot of teachers don't believe they're helped by the Department of Education. They believe they're hindered by the red tape paperwork. So we proposed that cut. We proposed that the Supreme Court not be allowed appropriations for lobbying and public relations. We said that spending $4 million a year to outsource a brand for Louisiana's economic development, that we thought that should be brought in-house to save money. We said that we should cancel state leases with the Bensons. Listen, I love the Saints, I love the Tigers, let's get that straight. But the state is actually leasing money or leasing buildings from the Bensons at higher than market rate. There's just a number of savings. Also, the savings, thank you. Look, the issue on transportation, everyone agrees that we have a problem with our roads and bridges. I was talking to a factory owner in North Caddo Parish today saying that he's having problems getting his manufactured product to market. But this is the basic choice that we have. We can either, 1, raise taxes, or 2, cut unnecessary and wasteful state government spending so that we can, instead of wasting the money or using it in places where it's not necessary, we can transfer it to the roads. For example, and I touched on it before, the annual budget for the Department of Education for the state of Louisiana, $1.6 billion. Now, most of that's federal, I understand that, but this year we're giving $400 million next year this fiscal year to the Department of Education to be bureaucrats and make it hard for teachers to teach. And again, it's the unnecessarily expensive leases that we have with the Bensons. It's the fact that the central government continues to grow. I think it's time for us to say, look, let's allow the size of government to shrink through attrition, not firing people, but just allow it to attrition down. Let's go ahead and put a 1-year moratorium. Also, and this is controversial in some circles, but I said that we should take a moratorium on our movie tax credits, because some studies show that for every dollar that we hand out to the movie industry, we're getting 29 cents back. Look, we need to respect the taxpayers. As far as getting involved in road issues, I've been honored and privileged and worked to to have work to get directly involved. For example, in Highway 5, that's a huge issue in DeSoto Parish. So I've attended hearings, I've written the Joint Transportation Committees of the House and Senate, I've recruited people, I've published editorials, or more correctly said, invited members of the citizen, called people to come and testify about Highway 5 so we can make some progress. We have made some progress on Highway 5, still a lot of work to do. Also got involved in 3276, that's the highway that goes through Stonewall. Again, writing the Department of Transportation Development. There was a road, Dodds Road in DeSoto Parish was a dangerous roadway. I responded and met with parish and state officials and the local residents to see, and pointed out that it was dangerously slippery. So I've gotten involved firsthand. More recently, we're getting involved, and of course this is infrastructure, not roads, but the dam at Clear Lake. I've just tried to get involved firsthand by contacting the responsible state government officials, and I have on more than one occasion published letters in the DeSoto newspaper telling people come and show up at these hearings. So I've basically tried to contact the public officials, written them. And again, for me, the big picture is let's go ahead and try to cut wasteful, unnecessary spending in some state departments. We'll have more money for roads so that we can be fixing our roads with savings without increasing taxes to the taxpayer. Well, we've got to get factories. What's the whole purpose of 49? And by the way, I've heard criticisms. I did vote, to be very straightforward. I voted to spend $100 million on completing 49 through Shreveport. I will tell you that I've also received some feedback from people in the community that I do respect, saying that can be a detriment to the community of Allendale. I'm not insensitive to that. But I think the bigger picture is 49 is helpful to us if it helps us attract business, factories, and industry. And my work in that regard, there's still lots of work to do. I've been in contact with, and I think for purposes of confidentiality, I don't think it's appropriate, but I can say that I've been in contact with some of the largest manufacturers in America. More recently, we've reached out to manufacturers in other states to invite them. But also, what do we need to do? In order to get factories here, we need to go ahead and get our taxes down, get our state government at a streamlined basis. I like to call it a pretzels and ginger ale budget, not a caviar and champagne. I think we need a streamlined, less expensive state government. That's not intended as a criticism of anybody. But let's reduce the size of state government. Let's cut taxes. And then let's get real with the issues that we're facing. We have a crime problem in Shreveport. There's been a series of legal reforms proposed in the last several years to the criminal justice reform package, and I will be honest, I've been in the minority on many of those votes, and for this reason. I believe that violent criminals should not be released without vetting them personally. I don't think we should across the board just make quota releases of people that have lengthy criminal records, because it's not fair to the communities into which they're released. And I'm a firm believer that everybody that believes in Shreveport, that lives in Shreveport, deserves a safe neighborhood. And also, you cannot ignore the connection between crime and industry. We've got to attack crime. One of the things I've said and recently, and this is in alignment with my voting record in the Senate. And again, some of these votes, I was the only vote that voted the way I did in that direction. Was I think if there are violent people in this community, if they're big enough to do the crime, they are big enough to do the time. The days when a legal slap on the wrist for serious crimes and the thought that that's going to somehow change our community, I'm not for that. I think even in instances of young people when they commit serious crimes, I think there has to be consequences and accountability and punishment. I think there needs to be a deterrent, and I think we need to put more focus on keeping the community safe for innocent people rather than catering to the prerogatives of the criminal element. Now, I will say, I'm not saying we throw people away. I've done prison ministry. Did the first of that probably over a quarter century ago. I've done youth juvenile detention centers, bringing the gospel, which is very effective. Well, let me tell you where I was on both of those issues. When I came into the Senate as a legislator in January 2016, we had a $1.8 to $2 billion deficit. And basically, that was from a prior administration, and my best understanding is that it was because they were financing their budget with one-time money and agency cookie jars rather than ongoing revenue. So we had a huge deficit. We had to act quickly. I mean, it's easy to say we could have done nothing, but we could have potentially put us in the place of closing down safety net hospitals or colleges, just basically a scattergun approach. A 5-year sales tax was proposed. I voted against that 5-year proposal because I thought it was too long. Then, and it was really my preference, I say, look, I will vote for an 18-month temporary sales tax. I never got that option. A 2.5-year tax was the only option I got rather than the 5 years. So I voted against 5 years. I voted for the 2.5 years. I had some reservations about it, but my concern was shutting down, again, colleges and safety net hospitals, including LSU Medical Center, University Health. But that was a temporary tax. In 2018, I was one of a handful of members of the Louisiana Senate that voted against every sales tax proposal. I voted against the 0.45 cents. I voted against the 0.5 cents. I voted against the 0.3. I voted against all of it, against the sales tax and installation. For this reason, I think the original tax enacted in 2016 was a temporary tax. And we have had time since then to recalibrate, to assess, to analyze, to dig down on the budget, to really try to assess the whole situation and figure out where we can make cuts. I think we had time. So that was my philosophy on it, is we've had time. Now it's time to cut the budget so we can cut taxes so our small businesses, family-owned businesses, working families, wage earners, professionals can keep more of their own money. Moving forward, look, some people complain about the $300 million surplus. I'd rather us have a $300 million surplus, which the state does, than be $22 trillion in debt, which the federal government is. So I don't really agree with complaints that we have a surplus. The question is, what do we do with it? I think we need to save it. I think potentially look very hard and very analytically at some investment in infrastructure, roads and bridges. I do not want to give any more money to the corrupt Department of Education, which is a huge Baton Rouge bureaucracy. I'm not sure if we'll have time to go into it further, but they're basically trashing our values. They're taking discipline out of the schools. Not everybody knows that the Department of Education, under its current superintendent, penalizes schools for imposing discipline. Louisiana has some of the unsafest schools in America. Some people say the unsafest. So I think we need to, I'm sorry, I'll respect your. Look, that's actually a dual track question, Ellie, and yes, you are that smart. But look, this is the deal. There is calls for a constitutional convention to amend the United States Constitution. There's calls to amend the Louisiana Constitution. My answer on both of those is no. Are there things, and this is the reason why. The United States Constitution, next to the Bible and possibly the Magna Carta, is the most fabulous document establishing human freedoms in the history of mankind. I will point out that the founding fathers were Christians, devout Christians, not perfect men, but they believed in the Bible, they believed in Jesus Christ, they believed in the role of God in a just society. They structured, engineered, drafted an amazing document. Now, do we want to take all of our freedoms, all of our liberties, a constitutional system, a republic, and place it on the table and put it in the hands of a convention? We don't know who's going to be at that convention. We don't know who's going to be pulling the strings for the people in that convention. Are we going to have a constitution that's rewritten by George Soros? Not if I'm able to stop it. Are we going to have a constitution that's rewritten by Hillary Clinton? Not if I'm able to stop it. And just so that people don't think I'm picking on Democrats, I don't want Dick Cheney rewriting our Constitution. We have an amazing Constitution that protects fundamental rights. I'll go a step further. I personally know one of the lead architects of the Louisiana Constitution. I'm dropping names now, really. He's the superstar. But Woody Jenkins served in the Louisiana legislature about 28 years. He was a lead drafter and a leader in the drafting of the Louisiana Constitution. Amazing statement of human freedoms, amazing document that protects our freedoms and liberties and rights. I'm not comfortable with putting that on the table and letting just any special interest group take away our rights and freedoms. I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in faith, family, and hard work. I'm an advocate for freedom and due process in our constitutional system. So I'm not into just throwing our constitutions in the paper shredder and putting George Soros or this group or that group or Hillary Clinton or Dick Cheney or corrupt politicians or Michael Bloomberg in charge of rewriting our constitutions. I will say, has there been too much stuff and puff put in the Louisiana Constitution? Absolutely. And probably what we need to do to fix that is we need to start doing D amendments to take stuff that never should have ended up in the Louisiana Constitution in the first place. We all know this. Probably, if anything, we need to start cowboying up, stepping up to the plate and say, this has no place in the Louisiana Constitution. This needs to be removed. This needs to be removed. We have an amazing document, both at the national and state level, which protects human freedoms. One of which is our ability to worship God, to petition our government for grievances. I'm going to give you an answer that's going to put me in a minority among the politicians. I believe that early childhood education can be a tool for us to prepare children for education. However, I have reservations. The superintendent of the Department of Education, I've got a pending lawsuit. He's illegally in office. He served one term. Under the Louisiana law, he was supposed to be reconfirmed by the Louisiana Senate in order to serve a second term. He has never done that. I have a pending lawsuit to seek a declaratory judgment that he's illegally in office. So number one, he's illegally in office. Number two, he wants control. He desperately wants control of the education of our infants to 4-year-olds. Well, guess what he's doing with the education of Louisiana children now? And let me get to the basic point so I don't run out of time. I think the primary educator of young children are their parents, their family, the church, the community. I know that's going against the grain, but I will tell you that government educrats desperately want to weaken the ties, the influence, and the connection between parents and their own children. So let's talk about the current superintendent against whom I currently have a pending lawsuit. Basically what he's done since he's been in charge of the Louisiana State Department of Education is they've introduced trashy curriculum. I'm not talking about high schoolers. I'm talking about 1st to 5th graders are now being given texts approved by the Department of Education that present to the children of Louisiana murder, rape, mutilation, homosexuality, adultery, suicide. Several years ago, 8th graders in a South Louisiana parish were being given a book to read called The Bluest Eye. This is 8th graders. A graphic depiction of a father sexually assaulting his own 11-year-old daughter. I don't trust that person or that program to teach our infant to 4-year-olds. Another thing that's happening, and this is, I've received a number of complaints about this in the community, is that the Christian daycares that are taking care of our children under contractual relationships with their parents and that teach our Christian values, John White and the Department of Education, they believe, is trying to put them out of business. So they can get a government education that removes Christ from the picture, that trashes our values, and that basically replaces our values, Louisiana values, which are centered around God, with a focus on government. Their agenda, and of course this gets to Common Core, we may or may not have time to talk about that, but Common Core is an agenda to remove Louisiana values from our education, replace it with government, socialism, atheism, and abortion. So I have great reservations about trusting the infants of Louisiana to the current Department of Education, and that's just... Education is where State Senator John Milkovich has been in about as many near fistfights as any other issue, and I do take on some tough issues in Baton Rouge. By the way, I want to say this during this interview: I'm fully capable of making mistakes on my own. But I will tell you, anything good that has come out of this office, I owe all the honor to God and the credit to the people of the District of 38, one of the strongest faith districts in America. They've supported us. They've had our back. They prayed for us. They've chewed me out when they thought I was missing something. They've helped me. They brought me information. They've emailed me and texted me and called me at 10 o'clock at night. So I believe we've done some good things, not principally because of John Milkovich, but because of God and the people. Let's talk about the fights that we fought in education. We have according to outside experts, we have the unsafest schools in America, right here in Louisiana. We do have virtually no protection from mass shooters coming in and perpetrating one of these horrible episodes of murder and mayhem. We had a Common Core system. The current Department of Education wanted to pretend that we were getting rid of it, so that they did this very expensive, elaborate dog and pony show to make it look like we were getting rid of it. We still have it. We wasted a bunch of money, and basically I think the people of Louisiana were not told the truth. As far as our academic achievement, how about 49th? Recent independent sources, this is not me, this is not John White, say our public schools rank 49th in America. Unsafest schools. We have too much testing. There's an attack on our values. Common Core has ripped our values out. Teachers can't defend themselves. I hear stories of teachers that are attacked by first graders. I hear a story of a teacher in Caddo Parish. A student came up and spoke the most vile filth and basically a threat to her. She kicked him, sent him to the office. The student comes right back to the classroom, and she basically quits. Our teachers are leaving the system by thousands per year. What have I done? I have fought tooth and nail. I've brought anti-bullying legislation to get police involved so that kids aren't bullied to suicide. Yes, that is happening in Louisiana. Multiple cases in Bossier Parish alone. I have been fighting Common Core. There have been 4 bills passed in the last 4-year term to get rid of Common Core, allow the local school districts the option to get rid of it. Senator Milkovich, your senator, has introduced every one of those 4 bills to get rid of Common Core. A teacher's Bill of Rights, teachers ought to be able to defend themselves. They ought to be able to instill discipline. They ought to be backed up by the administration. We ought to have safe classrooms. I introduced a bill that said school staffs that have people with military and or police training they should have a right to have firearms to protect the students from armed shootings. By the way, and we have too much testing. And again, I have filed suit, my wife and I, at our own expense, to say that John White's illegally in office. He is. Those measures have largely failed because the bureaucrats and lobbyists Well, I do want to say this. As far as the teachers are concerned, I think there's several things we need to recognize. Louisiana, and by the way, in all my concerns about education, I'll tell you the strength of the education system. It's not the bureaucracy. It's not the fact that the bureaucrats, lobbyists, and politicians won't step up to the plate and back up the good parents and the great teachers. We have some of the greatest teachers in America. But I think we need to be, number one, I do support a defined benefit. And one of the reasons I do is that in Louisiana, teachers give up much of their right to claim Social Security benefits. So we have teachers out there in their 70s and 80s, and perhaps some in their 90s in Louisiana, who are surviving solely on their teacher's pension because they essentially get no Social Security. So I do believe in a defined benefit because I think we need to protect our teachers and live up to what we said we would do. Number two, I have continually voted, and honestly all the legislature has, I'm not an outlier on this, but we have memorialized Congress. This is a federal law. It says it's time to quit punishing Louisiana teachers in their Social Security benefits. That's ridiculous. I don't know who it was that voted for it, in Congress years ago, but we need to change that. Teachers need to go ahead and get their Social Security. Number three, You know, I'm going to say we have had some very good leadership from Senator Beryl Peacock, one of my colleagues. I think he has worked very hard to try to give bumps when he can, but also we actually have been making some progress in state retirement. We have actually been reducing the debt. So that's a very important thing to do. I think that we, with pensions and retirement, like everything else, when we realize how much money we're spending, I think we have to look very hard at any unnecessary wasteful state government spending. That is why in 2018 I introduced over $320 million worth of budget cuts. I mean, if we want to take care of priorities, we got to stop the spending that's not absolutely necessary. And actually, I introduced budget cuts in 2017 and in several sessions of the 2017 legislature. So I think we need to protect our teachers. We need to try to get fair treatment under Social Security. I think, again, we need to make sure our budget is scrubbed and streamlined so we're not wasting money. And then I think there's room for creativity. And something that I've talked, and I have not proposed a bill on this, but going into the next session, it's something I'm going to look at is, could we take our teachers that are retired and say, look, come back and teach, and we're not going to give you all of your pension. You know, we're going to reduce your pension so that you'll actually, between your salary and the portion of your retirement that you're getting, you'll be making more money than you were, but you'll actually be drawing less, putting less pressure on the retirement system. So I think there's room for creative, and we have some great teachers out there that we need to get back in the classroom. Well, listen, I'm one of 144 legislators, but me personally, and I really believe this is many people in our district, the voice of our district, the heart of our district, the values of our district. I think we need to undo some of the criminal justice reform. Innocent people should not be in jail, and I think the courts need to look at cases where there's an injustice, and I've been an advocate for that. I've been involved in that. I did that for 7 years on one case. An innocent person was convicted. And I think people that have shown significant substantive, real behavioral, intentional reform, I think we need to look at that. And I don't think people should be getting life sentences for writing 5 bad checks because a judge is in a bad mood and drinks industrial strength coffee one morning. That's ridiculous. But I believe we need to step back from releasing violent inmates on a quota system. I think we need to be looking hard at the inmates and saying, look, have you demonstrated, not with words, but with action, that you're ready to go back and help us rebuild the community? We need community builders and rebuilders. We need violent criminals going back to steal, rob, and sell dope. That's not working for Louisiana. So we got to get a handle on crime. As far as education, I've said what I believe. We need to get rid of Common Core. We need new leadership in the Department of Education. The Department of Education needs to be scaled back significantly so that those resources are given back to the taxpayers or at least get in the classroom. You have to understand the Department of Education, that's not books, buildings, or teachers. That is the Baton Rouge bureaucracy. We need to get rid of Common Core so we can get and by the way, I said Common Core is spiritually, morally bankrupt. It's all of that, but it's also academically inept. Common Core is a failed system. We need to go back to our pre-Common Core educational standards and texts and curriculum that were working. So I think we need to go back to the future on education. I think we need to relook at the criminal justice reform. I believe if we, and of course taxes is another area. Again, reduce government, cut taxes. I think if we look at budget and taxes, rework budget and taxes, walk back some of the criminal justice reform, and get a moral, functional educational system, I think we're going to be more attractive to outside companies. And of course, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. Look, the strength of Louisiana, it's our Christian faith. I mean, I know that sounds old school. Some people think that's just too old-fashioned. But really, what I see in District 38 and across our state, the true community leaders in Louisiana, the educators are our heroes, the pastors. The pastors are the spiritual leaders of our communities. And I think it's time that Louisiana leads with our strength and say we're not ashamed of our Christianity, and the people aren't. And we need to honor the work done by our pastors, and we need to recognize that the pastors are the ones that are rebuilding families and communities. Well, look, we did what we said we would do. Not everyone agreed with our platform, but the platform that we ran on is the platform that we worked for, prayed for, and fought for. And thank God I didn't get hit down there. And that was fighting abortion. We introduced some of the strongest anti-abortion, pro-life measures. I think abortion's a curse on our state and our nation. Taxes, I voted against the budgets in 2017, 2018, 2019 because I thought there was more money in there that was necessary. There was some wasteful and unnecessary spending. I proposed budget cuts. It's easy for someone to say, well, we're spending too much. We went beyond that and made specific, targeted, very precise budget cut proposals introduced on the floor of the Senate as amendments to the budget bill that would have cut our state spending without really upsetting K-12 education, colleges, safety net hospitals, corrections, or state police. So budget cuts, and sales tax. I think it's time for us to let people keep more of their money. Sales taxes are driving people into poverty. So I said I would fight abortion. We did what we said we would do. I said I would fight to cut spending and taxes. We did what we said we would do. Often in the minority, typically in the minority on those votes, and we fought against Common Core. And actually, I fought the whole Senate Education Committee on that. I feel strongly about it because I've been listening to teachers and families and parents and grandparents that can't help their kids do fourth grade math and science problems. Biomedical engineers literally that can't solve fifth grade problems. That literally reported to me. So I think we need to address all those. I think we need to go ahead and look at where we are in crime. Basically, what I can say we did is what we said we would do. The reality and the honesty of it is I did not win. We did not win every fight that we got into. We took some hits, we took some losses. But I honor God for Him helping us. I thank the people of District 38. I give them the credit because they've just been warriors. And I think the people of District 38, I think they're leaders in Louisiana, but actually America. The moral integrity of the people of District 38 is amazing, and it's an encouragement to me and inspiration every day that I'm out among the people of our fabulous district. And I think perhaps what was important to me is for us to reaffirm and strengthen our Christian values and recognize the leadership role that's played in our communities by our pastoral leadership and give a voice to working families, ordinary citizens, and church folks, professionals, small businesses, family-owned businesses, the people that have been left out and ignored by the process, both in Washington and Baton Rouge. My job was to give a voice to the working families of District 38.